Hello and welcome to the Angerati studio here at European Utility Week, and we're joined now by Philipp Gruner from KG Technologies. And Philipp, welcome back to the studio. I think you've missed one of our runs,
Yes.
but that's allowed, right? So, but nice to see you, nice to have you back. And we were talking a little bit off air, and you know, the thing that is happening with smart metering is it's getting to crunch time, and a lot more meters are getting deployed and everything, and that's great. But there's also, it seems to me, some sort of race to the bottom in terms of a price point and things like that. And those are some of the things that we kind of want to talk about. But tell me from your perspective, you know, some of the things that are happening on that particular dynamic.
Well, anytime you have volumes increasing, everybody expects then that the costs go down, which is understandable. You build efficiency to manufacturing, you buy more raw materials, but the standards are also becoming more stringent. So utilities themselves take it upon themselves in order to stipulate the requirements on an electrical basis to ensure that the product meets the needs of their customers. So we have a catch-22 there, where while the volumes are increasing, the standards are becoming more difficult, and that of course makes it difficult to reduce the price.
And when you do have that price reduction, there's also there's another way of influencing, which is manufacturing. You know, there are a lot of companies who are saying, okay, well, we're going to outsource our manufacturing, and we're going to get the price point to come to that. But when we were talking off air, you were like going, well, actually, there's an issue with that, because what we're talking about on meters, there's a safety issue as well,
Yes.
isn't there?
Our device is critical. We are actually disconnecting the power inside the meters, and there's a lot of power involved in that, and short circuit is an issue as well. And in order to meet the price pressures, some people are almost forced, in order to reduce the metal consumption or the materials that are inside, find more innovative ways to reduce those costs. But in the end, the amount of raw material that's there in order to carry the current cannot really be tampered with. It's an aspect, it's a physics aspect where you need a certain amount of copper in order to make sure that the product runs safe.
And why do you think this may be a silly question, but I always feel that when a conversation starts becoming about price, someone has lost relevance in the dialogue, because when you just start talking about price, you think about it from a consumer goods side of things, the people don't, they might complain, but they still pay the price of an iPhone because it's good, and there's plenty of other phones who do the same stuff. So what do you think's happened in that metering world that has started to turn this conversation from what you were saying off air, so keenly on price and not relevance?
Well, I think it's a trickle-down effect. The utilities are expecting a lower price because the massive rollouts are starting right now. And of course, then the meter manufacturers go to their sub-suppliers in order to make sure that they can meet those cost targets. But in the end, it's really a matter of a safety issue. And if you get what you pay for, like you mentioned with the phones, if you buy a very cheap phone, you're not going to have all the nice features that you're looking for that you would get in an iPhone or even a Samsung. So it comes down to, what is the meter manufacturer and the utility looking for? Are you looking for a product that does the job right now, but may not do the job 3 years from now? And for us, safety is critical, because if the relays are not safe, there's lives at risk. There's issues of short circuits, sparking, high heating, which could eventually lead exactly. And that's the last thing I want to have to worry about when I go to bed at night. I want to make sure that I have a clear conscience, knowing that the product I put out there is not only safe today, but safe 10 years from now or 20 years from now.
So does that lead us back into the whole business case and thinking about why the smart meter needs to be in the home in the first place, rather than what you seem to be describing as maybe some sort of box ticking exercise? So we're getting closer and closer to a deadline, whether artificial or regulatory. Let's just get this done. But no one's still yet articulated that, okay, if we get it done in this way, we can do X, Y, and Z rather than just ticking a box?
Well, I think that everybody's been anticipating this massive rollout that's coming out, and everybody's happy to see it. With France and the UK really getting going, it's been something that I've personally been waiting for a long time. But it's because the massive rollouts have not been completed at this point. You don't have that data point yet of what will happen 5 years or 10 years from now. We've made that undertaking ourselves to do accelerated life tests to ensure that our product would meet the requirements down the road under very stringent conditions, weather conditions, hot, cold, salt spray tests. And regardless of what it is, we try to make sure that our product is good enough to last the lifetime of the meter and hopefully beyond even. I don't want our part to be the first one that breaks inside a meter, even though it probably takes the biggest pounding out of anything that's in there.
And if you were to then say, right, okay, because you're clearly doing this for a reason, and you're like, okay, we want to be relevant for whatever the future use case for that meter is, or whatever needs to happen around it. But what are some of the things that you guys have thought of internally, where you're going, well, hang on a minute, what if this were to happen, and actually we can see that something like this could happen, so we need to do that. Just paint a picture for me about some of the sort of use cases that you guys have thought of that may not even be in existence.
Well, it's the responsibility of a supplier, not only just to sell a product, but to find out what the end user is going to use it for. We have to determine what are the electrical specifications, the lifetime, the fault current conditions, how the grid is set up, and what the meter will see, which ultimately our relay will see also. So it's happened in instances for us where somebody has come and requested a product that was just at the barely scraping the capabilities of what the meter needs to do. We recommend you going with a larger relay or a better product that would give you that little bit of buffer in order to feel secure that your product is going to be out there and working properly. And working hand in hand with engineering then of our customers is critical. And also you need to then have open disclosure from your customers, providing that to your suppliers so that they understand what your product is supposed to be doing. And I think that's one of the key aspects that we've been trying to push with our customers is give us the information. The more we know, the better we can help you.
And because one of the things that I've been following, which is a fascinating thing, and I went to an event recently which was around sort of next generation photovoltaics. And one of the things that amazed me is that there are a lot of PVs that were on show there, and it's a bit early stage stuff that had the batteries built into it. And the notion of this one manufacturer said, okay, we're going to enable this within the home. So suddenly behind the meter, you've got a whole potential of another generation source. I mean, that probably puts a whole different pressure on that device.
It can. If there's fault conditions where the current can go in the opposite direction, which, of course, the standards, unfortunately, are more of a reactive thing.
Right.
There's new innovation, and then the standards come afterwards. Usually, when they've determined there's a certain fault involved, or there's a risk in there. So, at this point, normally those photovoltaic and the inverters, they do have safety switches that then connect then also back to the grid.
So they'd be isolated.
They should be isolated.
Right. Right.
That's critical. But luckily, the relays that we manufacture, they're actually designed to withstand 6,000 amp short circuits, and ours actually remain functional after that, even though the standards say they don't need to be. They can actually weld and just be fail-safe.
Right.
In the USA, because you have twice the current, it has to be 12,000 amps, and that's one of our key aspects is that if it's not done properly, it will explode, and that's why it goes years of innovation and R&D goes into a product before we can actually bring it to the market.
So, Philip, as we're coming to the end of our time here in the studio, so like one final question, and I always give you this challenge whenever you're here. It's like, can you give me a sense of some of what you've seen here that has kind of moved the conversation on? Because when we first met, probably 3 years ago, we were like, okay, we were seeing the same thing, but I personally find there's a bit of a DNA change, certainly with what's going on here, and this is a meeting place. So lots of new companies, companies powered by Google and stuff like
Yes.
that. Just give me your sense of how you're feeling about that.
Well, I feel that the market's really gaining traction now. It's gained some recognition. We've had some very good rollouts already ending in 2009 with Enel in Italy. Iberdrola is doing very well. Scandinavia is almost complete. And so now you have a lot more traction. And of course that brings then a lot of interest from the larger companies who can provide more services that are now connected to the smart grid, smart home, Internet of Things. So it's a very exciting time right now because there's new innovations coming out that we couldn't foresee. But luckily we have products that are able to meet those requirements simply because either they've been over-designed,
Yes.
but also because these innovations are basically designed with components that are readily available already. So I think what we'll end up seeing is that the smart metering is actually just the start, and the smart grid. And as that transitions now to the smart home, smart appliances, smart plugs, who knows what the next smart thing is going to be.
And the relevancy of the smart meter has also increased because there are a number of commentators talking about the real use case of dynamic pricing and so on. So you kind of need a smart meter to do that.
Of course, it's going to be the hub that will be able to control, measure, and communicate all that data back to the utility company and eventually up to your mobile phone, so that you're able then to actually have control of your power. And giving the consumer that control, I think, is going to really make them see the value behind it. And because I think in the past, the communication done to the end consumer was not done very well. They were not in the position to understand, why do we need a smart grid, especially in a time of an economic recession? Why are we spending so much money?
No, it wasn't done brilliantly, and I think maybe even the industry didn't quite get it right.
Yes.
But Philip, on that note, thank you for joining us, and thank you for your time, and thank you as well for watching.